So if you are thinking of purchasing land here in Cedar City, Utah, or the surrounding areas, you're going to want to know how water is allocated here in Iron County, Utah. There are two different types of water. There are water rights and there are water shares. We're going to do a little brief overview of water rights today and what you can expect here in Cedar City, Utah. All right, let's get to it. If this is your first time to this channel, we talk about everything there is to know about living in Cedar City, Utah and the surrounding areas. If that is something that interests you, make sure to go ahead and subscribe so you can stay up to date on our market. My name is Elizabeth Crisby. I am with Stratum Real Estate Group. I get calls, texts, emails from people just like you every single day looking to make a move here to Cedar City, Utah or the surrounding areas. Please feel free to reach out. My information is down below in the description. I'd be more than happy to help you make that move. All right, let's get into our water rights and what you can expect here. So water rights here in Iron County, Utah are quite complex. For example, I've had 2 3-hour water classes and there is still so much to learn. If you are like me, water rights was kind of a new concept to me. Not that water rights didn't exist in Las Vegas, because they did, but for my entire life I was using city water, meaning I was getting a bill each month that I was paying for my water. Now, with that being said, I still do that here in Cedar City, Utah. The land that I bought is on city water, and so I am still paying my monthly water bill. However, there is a lot of property here in Cedar City, Utah and the surrounding areas where water rights come into play, and you'll want to make sure you know what water is attached to the land when you purchase it. And what I mean by that is water rights are a real property or real estate, meaning that they are bought and sold very similar to traditional real estate. So the first thing to understand here is that all water in the state of Utah, whether above ground or under the ground, is the property of the public. However, it is still subject to all existing rights. Essentially what that means is that water is owned by the public, but it is administered by the government. This actually means that no one person can actually own water within Utah. Again, whether above ground, below ground, or even that rainfall water that is coming down. Utah has appropriated water rights, meaning that water is appropriated or set apart for its application or for the use of water. So in other words, there's the right to use water that has been appropriated to you, but it's important to note that you have the responsibility to use that water to the full and maximum benefit. So that begs the question, why is water appropriated? Well, there's a few different reasons why we appropriate water, or why the right to use the water is given. The first one is so that no one person can control all of the water. The second one is that water is less likely to be monopolized or traded for profit. And the third reason is to ensure that the water will be put to continuous beneficial use, meaning it's beneficial to the individual as well as the population. Now, beneficial use is very important here. The state of Utah wants to make sure every drop of water is used efficiently and effectively. Now, this beneficial use is determined by the legislature. They determine what is considered beneficial use. So the two main things to remember here are the state actually owns all the water and they give the right for you to use the water. The second thing to remember is that the water must be put to continual and beneficial use. So now that we understand that we're given the right to use water, it's important to note that we can purchase water rights or own water rights, much like real property or real estate. Now, this is defined by location and measurement, meaning the location of the water, what basin it's in, and how much water right you actually own. So for example, the standard unit of measure for water is typically acre foot. So this means how much water you would get if 1 foot of water was covering an acre of land. So 1 acre foot. So 1 acre foot is actually equal to 43,560 cubic feet of water. Another way that they measure cubic feet of water, so for example, let's say it wasn't on an acre of land, let's say it's a flowing stream, then we can measure that in cubic feet per second. So for example, let's say the stream was flowing at 15 cubic feet per second, and we can say 1 cubic foot is about the size of a basketball. That would be like saying 15 basketballs. So 15 basketballs coming through per second. So 1 cubic foot per second. I hope that makes sense. The main way that that we measure water is acre foot, and that's how it's typically described when buying and selling that water right, but you will also see it in cubic feet per second. So now remember, I said the water right is dependent on location and measurement of water. What I mean by location is that the water is broken up into basins and subbasins, and it's determined by an underground water system. I will put a link down below to the Division of Water Rights website where you can actually go in and you can pinpoint the location of a water right. Basically, each basin is assigned a number, and that number will be the beginning of your water right number. It's important to note that water cannot be transferred from location to location. So for example, if your water right exists in basin 71, then you don't have the water right in basin 72. You can actually go onto the Division of Water Rights website and actually search the water rights number to see where it is located and what rights are attached to it. Now, it's important to also note that water rights can be a little tricky. Even though it may show that there is a water right attached to that property, it might not be in good standing. So you want to make sure that you actually contact the Division of Water Rights, have that conversation with them. The biggest thing to know about water rights and what a lot of people get confused on is the priority date, meaning first in time, first in right. So for example, water right owners here in Utah have a priority date. So a priority date is when the water was first granted or appropriated by the state. So let's say, for example, a water right was first appropriated or granted in 1880. That means the priority date with that water right is the year 1880. That priority date never changes and it remains attached to that water right. It doesn't matter how many times the water right is bought or sold. So let me give you 3 different examples, and I want you to think about who has the priority here. Person A buys their water right 12 years ago with a priority date of 1899. Person B buys their water 6 years ago with a priority date of 1924. Person C buys their water right 3 years ago with a priority date of 1887. So when considering these 3 people, A, B, and C, which one has the priority date? Meaning which one is first in time, first in right? Meaning they get to use their full supply of water right, or they have the first priority date. If you chose person C, you are absolutely right. Even though person C only purchased their water right 3 years ago, their priority date of 1887 is actually an earlier date than person A or person B. Now, it's important to note that the water right doesn't guarantee at what depth you will receive your water. So for example, let's say you've drilled down 20 feet and you still haven't hit your water, you might need to go even deeper. So when purchasing water rights, it's important to make sure you do your due diligence, just like you would anything else during a home purchase. For example, you want to make sure you do a home inspection so you can ensure the value or safety of a property, right? The same thing happens with water rights. You want to make sure you do your due diligence on what water rights come with that property and if they are in good standing. It's also important to note that you should never assume that a water right is attached to a property. You must do your due diligence here and make sure that you are getting the water with that property. For example, make sure it's listed on the purchase agreement, make sure it's listed on the seller's disclosure to you, and then once everything is finalized and settled, make sure that the sale has been recorded with the Division of Water Rights, as well as having the deed transferred into your name. It has to be done in 2 different places. So a few of the things you want to check out when you are doing your due diligence when purchasing a property and understanding that water right is you want to make sure to check the water source and the availability and quality of the water. You'll want to know if there are any regulatory issues or restrictions on the use of the water. If there is a well on the property, you'll want to make sure there is a well inspection done. And then you'll want to see if there is any other pertinent information needed based on what you intend to use that water for. Definitely work with your real estate agent on this, but your main source of information is going to be the Division of Water Rights. So please don't hesitate to contact them. Water rights are public, so they will give you that information. Again, this is run by the Division of Water Rights. The state engineer is actually the director over this, but it is the Division of Water Rights that is responsible for it. I would also recommend that you get the person's name that you are talking to, get their email, contact information, information, write down the time of day that you spoke to them and what you spoke to them about. And then as soon as you're done with that conversation, I would make sure you send a follow-up email thanking them for the information and reiterating what you went over. One, so you have it in writing, and two, so that they can clear up any misconceptions that might have happened in the conversation, because like I said, water rights are tricky. One other thing I want to note here is that because the water must be put to continual and beneficial use, you can lose your water right if it is not put to beneficial and continual use. It's a use it or lose it mentality or philosophy here. Now, in order to lose that water right, it must be 7 years of non-use. I'm not sure if that's a continual 7 years of non-use, but it is 7 years of non-use. That's definitely a question you can ask the Division of Water Rights to see if that affects you. So when you're doing your inspection or your due diligence of the water, make sure that water has been put to continual beneficial use. Now, it's kind of weird the way they go in to determine whether or not the water has been put to continual beneficial use, but they'll actually have to do an investigation on it, and it could take time depending on where that is located. They use satellite images, they look at the greenage around that area to see if the allocated water has been used as it's intended. So, as you're doing your due diligence, just one of those other tricky, sticky little things to make sure you look into. All right, so I know that is a quick, brief overview of the water rights here. The main thing you need to remember is all the water is owned by the state and you are given the right to use the water. If you are given the right to use the water, you must put it to continual and beneficial use. If you do not use it, you will lose it. So if you are purchasing a property with water on it, make sure you do your due diligence. Contact the Division of Water Rights to make sure that water is in good standing, to see what water is available, and to see what kind of quality water that is. So once again, my name is Elizabeth Prisby. I'm with Stratum Real Estate Group. If you are looking to make a move here to Cedar City, Utah, or the surrounding areas, I would love to help you make that move. My information is down below in the description. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I get people saying, oh, I didn't think you'd answer. I didn't think that you'd email me back. I do, you guys. That's why I do this. I'm here to help you in any way that I can. All right, until next time, have a wonderful day.